So what is the weather going to do next? We've had a very active, very wintry, cold start for certain areas of the country to December. Sort of just an old school, old-fashioned start to winter. But what's next as we move over the next couple weeks, get closer to the New Year's? We're even going to extend this a little bit into January, just a few days or so. We're going to discuss everything. I do want to spend a little bit of time right at the beginning of the video with what's going on right now with this storm system, because it is packing a punch, especially with winds. We'll do that, and then we'll dive deep into the pattern leading up to Christmas, and then we'll extend it past Christmas and talk about the period kind of between Christmas and New Year's. And then, like I said, move a little bit into the month of January. After that, we'll go over the rest of the country as far as today's weather, and then we'll wrap the video up. My name is Mitch. Good Friday morning. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please drop it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So let's make sure this is going to work. We're going to start off by looking at the water vapor loop. We haven't done that in a while. If you've been tuning in for a while, we used to start off every video like this, but this indicates how much moisture is in the atmosphere. The whiter colors, that's more moisture. Kind of the doled out gray colors, that's drier air. So you see you got a lot of flow screeching across the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, even the central Rockies. And then if you look really closely, things kind of dramatically drop down like this. And that is our trough digging down, bringing a shot of Arctic air. So you can see it's dried out kind of in this area, but in this region right into here, it's more white, more moisture in the atmosphere. And if you look at the radar, which we're about to do here in a second, it shows it well. There's a lot of moisture, a big surge of rain going across areas of New England, the Mid-Atlantic. We even had a line of thunderstorms as far south as the Carolinas and Georgia this morning. In fact, we had a severe thunderstorm warning in areas of North Carolina about an hour ago. So this is packing a punch, bringing some strong winds with it, and it's taking on that negative tilt that we talk about. Once it begins to tilt in this direction, like I just drew, that means it takes on a negative tilt. When it's tilting like this, that is a positive tilt. When it starts to get like this, that is a neutral tilt. And then when it goes from that neutral to that negative tilt, which is what it is right now, it really begins to get stronger and pack more of a punch as far as high impact weather. So let's continue to move forward. Look at the radar, and it shows it well. We got a little bit of a glitch here, so let's try to fix that really quick. And for whatever reason, the radar is struggling with pulling up what is falling as winter weather. Something's going on with the site that I use, WeatherTap. I'm sure they'll get it fixed here in the next day or so. But this green right here is actually falling in the form of snow. Same thing with up here. And even here in the Ohio Valley areas of the Midwest, you can see some light returns here. This is falling in the form of some snow, but everything up here for the most part is rain, and it is a wind-driven rain. There's that severe thunderstorm warning. It's actually still ongoing right now at the time me making this video, which is around 6:45 Eastern time. This expires at 7 a.m., but looks like the Raleigh-Durham area, surrounding regions getting hit by a pretty strong to even severe line of storms right now. In the middle of the country is pretty quiet. Ridge is already flexing, but this is an aggressive trough. It's not digging down very far south, but it is taking on that negative tilt. So we have a high impact, significant storm system with it, with a shot of Arctic air. As far as all the winds that are on the way, you can see tons of wind advisories in kind of this tan brownish color. And you kind of get into this dark, almost mustard color here. These are high wind warnings. So big windstorm is already beginning right now. It's going to unfold over the next 24 hours. And speaking on how strong these winds can be, this is predicted max wind gusts from the National Weather Service, so the experts, and I mean, we're going for 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts, especially as we get out on Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. I mean, this is going to be some very strong winds. Mid-grade tropical storm force winds, kind of equivalent to a nor'easter, but not the same as a nor'easter. This is just a very strong cold front with a storm system associated with it, not a low pressure really off the coastline. But strong winds are going to be in the central to northern, even southern Appalachian Mountains, all across the Appalachian Mountains. If you're higher up in elevation, of course, winds will be stronger, but just a windy day unfolding across the Northeast, and will continue to cross areas of the Mid-Atlantic this morning. So the shot of cold air behind this is quite aggressive. It's not going to last super long. and it's not diving down super far south. But these are current temperatures right now across the upper Midwest. Shot a very, very Arctic air. It's 10 to as much as 20 degrees below zero across areas of Minnesota. And, it's below zero across areas of North Dakota. Also, single digits making their way into areas of Wisconsin, even the UP of Michigan. Down into Iowa, we got a couple areas that are around 0 degrees. And then we start to get into the Midwest. It's modified a little bit, but the cold air is just working in. And we got temperatures in the teens. But then you make your way, across areas of the Carolinas. You can see right here, we're ahead of the cold front. So we got temperatures in the 60s, things like that. But a lot of these areas across the Mid-Atlantic, the eastern U.S., just in general, in fact, let's take a look at that. The temperatures are actually going to drop in these areas throughout the day, especially with the core of the coldest air will be working through. So it's wild. I woke up and it was about 64, 65 degrees at my house here in Columbia, South Carolina, but I'm looking at my weather station right now. It's around 56 degrees, so temperatures have dropped about 10 degrees behind the cold front that just passed through. And you can take a look at how cold these temperatures are compared to average. And this is this morning. Euro Ensemble showing 10, 20, as much as 30 degrees above average as far as low temperatures for December 19th standards. But you can see the greens, the blues, even the Barney purple colors making their way through well below average temperatures. Just a shot of cold air makes its way in. And it's honestly, this kind of develops into just a regular run-of-the-mill cold front as it makes its way into the Northeast. As the coldest air doesn't really dig down very far south. And it's just a chilly start to your weekend for areas of the eastern U.S. Nothing too crazy. I mean, just nothing too wild. I mean, I wouldn't call this anything too bad once you start to get to the south and really even the Northeast. It's just very cold right now, very Arctic across the Midwest, upper Midwest. So let's talk about the period between now and Christmas. And we're going to stop it there, kind of break that down. Then we'll break down kind of Christmas onward to New Year's and after that. So we're going to take a look at the European model and probably just the European model only here between now and Christmas. As we move into our Saturday, I mean, the country looks pretty quiet as we move into tomorrow. I mean, ridge begins to flex. Most of our energy is cruising across the northern sections here, really into Canada, as our jet stream is really kind of building way to the north. So therefore all of our energies to the north, and the southern stream is pretty quiet. So we're not getting any energy to the south. We continue to have some energy moving into the west in the form of higher elevation snow, lower elevation rain. A little bit of energy tries to show up here in the deep south in the form of some rain. Then we have a more high impact storm system that begins to move into the western U.S. as we get into Monday. And there's your time frame up here. Don't focus really so much on the time of the day, just the actual day and the date here. But we move forward and we start to get into, I want to say, Monday into Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. There's an interesting little storm system for areas of the Northeast. There could be just enough cold air involved for some snow a day or two before Christmas, which, would put everybody in the festive spirits if you're into that kind of stuff like I am. But we could have a winter weather event across the Northeast, New England, and it could affect areas like Boston too. We're watching that. We'll break that down in more detail when we get a little bit closer to it. But the middle of the country continues to be quiet. We get into, Christmas Eve morning, and we could have a high impact storm system that pretty much impacts all the western states. And you can see there's a lot of moisture out there. Not much going across the eastern lower 48, but we continue to have rounds of energy moving across the western U.S. and we get all the way into Christmas Day and we'll stop it here. It looks like another storm system is moving in. But listen, there's not really a whole lot to talk about between now and Christmas Day. Next, Thursday, I think is the day. So, I mean, the only thing that I would watch out for is just a couple storm systems in the west that's going to bring kind of that atmospheric river into place here. Nevada going to get a lot of snow. So if you're vacationing out there for Christmas, it's probably going to be a white Christmas depending on your elevation. And then we're going to watch for this tricky winter weather event for the Northeast that will break down more over probably over the weekend or so. But as far as the pattern, the upper pattern, when we look at lower heights, higher heights being in these warmer colors here, this brings warmer than average temperatures. These lower heights in the blue, lower pressure brings storm systems and colder temperatures. And you can see as we start off this evening, most of our energy is really up here in Canada. And we got this kind of flat broad, very large well, it looks like a bridge, but ridge across the lower 48. Now you can see this kind of more deep area of cold air, kind of lower pressure right here, moving across areas of southern Canada into the Great Lakes region. This is probably going to bring a shot of cold air again this weekend into the upper Midwest and then eventually into the Northeast. You can see how this kind of moves over the Northeast, and that could bring a shot of pretty cold air, and then the ridge begins to flex. You can see it gets taller, and you can see there is some troughing extending over the Pacific Northwest. That is going to create that avenue for energy across this region, because that's where our energy goes, right, guys? I mean, it kind of cruises between these warmer colors and these bluer colors. This is where the jet is. Okay, it doesn't mean you can't get energy into here or energy further north. You can get some kind of cutoff energy that cruises kind of embedded into this ridge. You can still get that, but the main avenue of energy in this pattern is up here. So that's why when I just showed you what the euro looked like over the next 5 or 6 days or so, it shows, energy moving into this area, shows a little bit of energy into this area in the form of that winter weather event as we start to get into around Tuesday of next week. But we'll continue to watch that, but the ridge is just dominating the majority of the pattern across the lower 48. You can see just the higher heights, the ridge, just very loud, very ugly in my opinion on your screen leading up to Christmas. Listen, this is going to bring record-breaking temperatures. Let's just keep it real. Let's just be honest. It's going to bring record-breaking temperatures, high temperatures for areas of the country. I mean, it is definitely going to be that Christmas where if you got outside, Santa Claus brings some outside type toys, you get the outside toys for the kids. It is going to be pretty darn comfortable outside playing with it. So we're getting into Christmas Eve. Ridge continues to flex. We get all the way to Christmas Day. You start to see some changes out west, but for the most part, this ridge even begins to extend across the Northeast. So you can actually get a warm up. It starts to warm up more as this ridge axis kind of positions itself further to the east. So you look at temperatures compared to average, and this is the smoothed out Euro ensemble, basically between now and Christmas evening, Christmas Day evening. So you can see above average temperatures dominate the Rockies, dominate the middle of the country, and it's not as dominant once you get into the eastern U.S. You can see just lighter tone colors here, a few degrees above average, and that's just because of this shot of cold air and maybe another shot of cold air later this weekend that kind of knocks down kind of the average here. Okay, and so really that's the only thing really preventing this to be well above average is these quick couple of cold fronts that are on the way. One working through right now, and so forth. But you can even tell. I mean, the Northeast, it's kind of an average to slightly above average temperature pattern, but well above average temperatures here. So let's extend this past Christmas. All right. Anybody's dream of a white Christmas outside of a couple certain areas is pretty much shot. That's my dream always, of not necessarily getting winter weather on Christmas or Christmas Eve, but just sometime around the Christmas season, right? It looks like that's just going to live on go on to live another year for most of us. All right. So what's the hope? Can we find any sort of hope moving forward for us winter weather fans? And so let's go on and move this past Christmas. Make sure it's going to work. Let's back it up and look at the Euro again. We're going to start off December the 26th, post-Christmas depression. And the 26th is always rough. It's just to me, it's almost like the ending to the best time of the year. But anyways, let's continue to move forward. You can see some energy out west. Remember, the timestamp is up here. Don't worry about the time of the day, just the actual day and the date. We continue to move into the 27th. I mean, I think it could get pretty quiet for the next couple of days after Christmas across the eastern U.S. and definitely across the western U.S. as things just begin to quiet down. But it does show a storm system kind of around the 27th, 28th with a shot of cold air behind it. You can see that 540 line digging down pretty south. So this is probably going to be some cold air right here, but I don't think it'll be anything too crazy. But what's wild to me is some cold air is digging down far enough south at the surface to actually put a little bit of a wintry mix down here in central Texas. Not sure if that'll happen, but it does show a pretty warm storm system moving into the northeast. Got a 981 low popping off in southeast Canada. But we'll see how that evolves. I mean, we're starting to get 10 days out now, but it does show a shot of cold air diving down. you can see just based off this 540 line diving out, this is a trough digging in. But you don't see any significant storm system with it. Okay, and we continue to move to the last couple of days of the year. We say so long to 2025. You can see there's something trying to happen right here. I'm a weather nerd, so I can see just based off these lines here that something is trying to dig here. But it doesn't matter because it's so far out. We start to get to New Year's Day. And, I mean, there just ain't really a whole lot of anything. It just looks like a quiet period of weather. Now we look at the latest GFS, the one that was ran this morning. Same thing was started off the day after Christmas. Move forward. I mean, it does try to develop some type of snow event a couple days after Christmas across areas of New England. It kind of shows that shot of cold air, just like the Euro does. You can see that 540 line digging down. And I think this is in response to a negative NAO that's starting to develop. I think this will bring a shot of cold air down into the eastern U.S. Any kind of storm system with it? I don't know. We got to figure that one out. We continue to move forward. Shows a storm system trying to develop across the central to southern Rockies. And then this does eject. It's kind of like I think this is an embedded low pressure cutoff low embedded into this ridge. But this begins to cut across the country. You got to watch out for these for severe weather. And it does whatever it does. It doesn't matter because it's over 10 days out. This will definitely change. But there is a storm system there. And then we move into 2026. And it does show a shot of cold air digging more so into the middle of the country. Okay, no crazy winter storm with it. But it doesn't dive down south. And that continues to be kind of the common theme here. Is these shots of cold air are really not, these troughs are just not diving down aggressively to the south. But you can see there's cold air to the surface enough to bring snow all the way down to El Paso. So we continue to move forward. And if you go to the very final end right here, you can see another trough about to dig down if you just go off the 540 line. So to sum all that up, I mean, there's no defined signal for any high impact storm system. But if you look at the upper pattern, once again, we're looking at lower heights, higher heights, lower heights in the blue, lower pressure, cold air. Sometimes bring some storms with it. And then you look at the higher heights, a ridging, ridge of high pressure. And that is in these colors right here. The yellows, the oranges, even the reds when it's a very strong ridge of high pressure. So and when we're kind of nerding out with you guys and breaking down the pattern, seeing what's going on, you can see this ridge axis begins to shift more so into the central to eastern U.S. And we could have a bit of a trough that sets up over the western U.S., a really defined negative PNA, which is not a winter weather fan. That does not work well with winter weather fans of the central and eastern U.S. But I mean, hey, we gotta let the western U.S. get into some fun with this winter weather. You guys have kind of been ripped off to start off the season, but we continue to move. And really, what's happening here is you can see. Let's stop it right here. You can see a negative NAO developing, which is blocking over Greenland. But you can see that the strongest portion of this ridging is over the eastern portion and just east of Greenland. We call this an east-based negative NAO. We really need a west-based negative NAO, which means that this strongest portion of this ridging, as we move into the last few days of the year, of December, really needs to be kind of in this area. This would create a negative NAO. It would also create a negative AO, Arctic Oscillation. And, NAO stands for North Atlantic Oscillation. So it's just basically fancy terms for ridging and blocking in the higher latitudes, which is up here where I just did these check marks. This dislodges cold air to the south. So I do think, even though this is not a favorable position of this NAO, negative NAO, it's still enough to dislodge a trough kind of over areas of the Atlantic Canada, the Northeast. And you can see how it happens here. It's just dropping this cold air right into here. But we need this to be over here. And then that could drop this trough more so like this if this ridging right here was more so this direction. Okay, now it just doesn't look like that's going to happen, but that could change. One thing that is not changing is the stubborn Pacific. Okay, it just continues to show this Aleutian Ridge, basically this ridge, west of Alaska. This is creating this trough over Western Canada. And we just don't like to see this. So just to kind of show you the motion of all of this, I mean, it just continues to show a ridge. And just to show you sort of, the pattern going forward, you can see how most of the country, for example, this is just a timestamp for the 28th of December, most of the country's above average temperature-wise. Some a few degrees above average, some are well above average. But if I move this in motion, and I'm kind of grasping from straws here a little bit, kind of trying to show a little bit of a light in the tunnel. You can see how the Northeast and areas of the eastern U.S. kind of go back to around average to slightly above average temperature-wise. Now, what causes that, and that would make us go back to this, what causes that is this negative NAO kind of getting into the picture, and that creates this trough right here that we just talked about. This would bring some cold air kind of right into this region. Right? We could have some type of storm system, maybe. But this brings some cold air back behind this trough across areas of the Northeast, maybe extreme eastern U.S. I mean, I'm talking about like the East Coast pretty much. And that's why you kind of see that period of slightly below average temperatures show up maybe a few days before the turn of the new year. Okay, but for the most part, most of the country is dominated by warm air. Now, just to kind of show you a frozen 7-day ensemble mean, and this is basically going between pretty much the 26th, 27th of December all the way through about the 2nd of January. Okay, so this is getting kind of out there. It's definitely the definition of the long range. And I mean, this information isn't going to be much different than what I just showed you. You can see what's going on here. We got blocking up here. I'll do an H for high pressure. We got blocking developing, but it's that east-based negative NAO. The strongest of this ridging is positioned eastern sections of Greenland and just flat out east of Greenland. We need this to move this way, but this is the way it is, right? This creates this trough sort of over this region right here. But I mean, it's just, we need this trough for cold air over the eastern U.S. and central U.S. to be more so like this, and definitely I would say more so like this, but that's not going to happen unless this positions itself further to the west. But even if it did, guys, we got problems on the entire Pacific side also. The Pacific is shot. We got this Aleutian Ridge right here that keeps flexing. This is dislodging cold air kind of over sections of Alaska and then Western Canada. Okay, this is what you call a classic negative PNA. It means we have a trough in the west and western sections of North America. Okay, so basically we got a trough here and a trough here. I mean, with a ridge right in the middle. So we don't have a lot of teleconnections working in our favor. When I say teleconnections, I'm talking about the PNA, the EPO. Okay. The NAO somewhat working, and the AO is trying to get there, but we're basically got a lot of misplaced ridging in the higher latitudes to get cold air. I mean, it's not even working out for the western U.S. because we are having a hard time dropping this trough more so over the western U.S. to kind of get the western sections of the country some fun for winter weather. It'd be nice if somebody could at least get it, right? But just there's not a lot of things working in our favor right now. And we continue to try to figure out some ways to get out of this. And the only way for the eastern U.S. Temporarily to get out of this is to fix this blocking and move this further over the higher latitudes, create a true classic negative NAO that we need, the west-based one, and then blocking over the Arctic, negative AO, Arctic oscillation. This would dislodge cold air. We got cold air up here too, just more across the lower 48. It's just, but we keep having this dumb trough right here, and this is just flooding. I mean, just flooding the lower 48 with mild Pacific air because the flow goes around this trough just like that. So I hope that makes sense. You know, my goal is to explain this in a way where you guys understand, and I like to get technical with this and nerd out a little bit. But I mean, I don't even have to really say anything. I think most people can look at this and say, yeah, that's not a good look because you got this big blob of warmer colors over the lower 48, right? Now, I will look at the Euro AI ensemble, and it looks a little bit better. It provides a little bit more hope. Same time period. It goes from Christmas basically to just past New Year's, but it still has this pesky, stupid ridge right here that is extremely hard to get rid of. This creates a trough right here, right? This keeps Alaska cold, keeps Western Canada cold. But it does show this trough axis trying to move across the western U.S., but that's not a favorable position of this negative NAO right here. It's keeping the trough axis more so to the east. We need to position this. I know I've said it about a million times, more so this way. This would back this trough axis up this way, therefore we get these pretty blue colors for us winter weather fans, more so over that area, maybe even further to the west. There's just a lot of work to do. Lot of work to do, guys. And, if you look at the forecast based off, we're just going to look at the Euro Ensemble, the forecast teleconnections, and where the Euro Ensemble thinks that this will go. If we look at the negative NAO, well, the NAO, it does have it going negative. I mean, the dates are right down here. It's very hard to see, but it has it pretty much going negative, pretty much over the weekend, the next few days or so, and staying negative. So that's good. All right, but if you look at the AO, we need this to be negative for winter weather fans, but it stays positive, tries to go negative around Christmas or just after for a few days, and that makes sense. That matches up with that, maybe that cool shot of air across the eastern U.S., but then it goes positive again, maybe. Okay, and then we got the EPO, which I didn't really discuss much when I was just breaking down the pattern, but this EPO, okay, we need this to be negative, and we haven't had that working for us. This is definitely not a negative EPO. It's trying to get there, right? It tries to go negative, I don't know, for a couple days here in the next few days, but then it just goes raging positive again. And, that is basically when we got a negative EPO, East-Pacific Oscillation, that means that you pretty much have a trough and colder air. When you get a positive EPO, that's colder air in Alaska, colder air over Western Canada, things like that. And it just looks to remain to stay positive. And this has been something that's kind of been working in our favor over the last few winters. And then, you look at the Pacific North American Oscillation, the PNA, and it just stays negative. It might briefly go positive, but I mean, we need to be positive. That a positive PNA is a ridge in the west, basically, the Western North America. Okay, so one thing I haven't showed you guys a lot of is the MJO progression. We were talking about that like crazy, right? For a few weeks straight. I was excited about it. Everybody and their brother's uncle's pet goldfish was excited about it, right? We were getting into phase 8. We raced there. We got there so quick. And then we dove into the good old circle of death, which is this right here. Okay, kind of inside this circle. So this is what we call a null phase. There's many terms for it, but it's a low impact phase of whatever phase you're in. So, I mean, for example, we kind of been hanging out in a kind of a null phase of phase 7 and phase 8, but whatever phase it is, it doesn't matter. It's in a very low impact phase because we're inside this circle. And even if we were kind of in this area here also, or either over here or wherever we may be, it's just low implications on the pattern itself. So we're just kind of farting around, if you will, in this circle, which means that who knows what it's going to do? We don't know. It's tough. It's tough to figure out. We really need a high amped phase 8. Like we need this graph. And if you're wondering what 3s and 5s are and stuff, 17s, that's the date. So this was back on December the 3rd. December the 19th. I mean, everything's so jumbled up. You can't even see December 19th, but it's right here. We're kind of it's trying to say that we're in a low amp phase 8 right now, but I think we're more so in a phase 7. But we really need this thing just going way out here, doing just a nice outward circle throughout phase 8, 1, and 2. That's a stronger amped phase of phase 8, 1, and 2, which these phases right here, these MJO phases, are great phases for cold and winter weather chances for a good chunk of the country. But we're just hanging out just in this circle of death or flirting with it. So, yeah, I didn't want to just completely ignore the MJO and think, well, he's not talking about it anymore because it it doesn't support what he was talking about. I see it, guys. It's just, to really sum it up, we're in a really low impact phase that's not bringing any impacts to the pattern itself. So other things kind of drive the pattern. And that gets into the very nerdy stuff that even I have a hard time explaining. So anyways, as far as today's weather, a cold front is making its way through across the areas of the southeast. So cold air is going to follow behind it. Cold temperatures will actually drop throughout the day in certain areas, especially in the mid-south. It'll be a very cold day across areas of the mid-south, kind of west of the Appalachian Mountains. If you hear any screeching in the background, my little girl is drawing something in there, and she sounds like that she's pressing down on the marker as hard as she can, so it's making that screechy noise, but we're just going to let her keep going there. The northeast here, we got a big rain bomb moving in, just a lot of strong winds and rain associated with it. Cold air tries to catch up with this moisture in like the Adirondacks, upstate New York, switches to some heavy snow, and we got some snow moving across the Ohio Valley, areas of western PA, the favored mountainous regions of West Virginia. And I really think as we get into this afternoon, this evening, if you're doing some Christmas shopping for the last Friday before Christmas, it's going to be a festive look out there. Some snow is going to be flying around. We're going to have a period of lake effect snow. This is going to add some snowfall accumulation, so it'll definitely be pretty festive out there. It's going to be cold. Temperatures will dramatically drop behind this cold front, so we're going to get a little bit of snow from this. This is PA, the Erie, a couple inches between now and the next 48 hours. We get into these favorite areas, kind of the Southtown, south of Buffalo. Some areas could get 6 inches of snow, a touch of snow once we get into the southern tier of New York. In fact, let's just go on and bump it up to here. You can see just a few tenths of an inch of snow. Several inches of snow is possible in the Adirondacks. The Tug Hill Plateau can get over a half a foot in this pink area. And then we just take a look at Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Some snow is possible in the higher elevated regions. The south central U.S., quiet. Nothing going on. It's dry. The weather's been so quiet in this area. I had no clue that areas of Texas hit peak fall foliage in December. I'm seeing some crazy pictures. Like I saw one earlier this week out in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I did see people say this is about a couple weeks later than usual. But it showed a picture of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and you're in peak fall foliage this week. But it's been a weird fall. We're getting kind of a secondary burst of color here in central South Carolina also. It looks like the oaks are trying to turn and stuff like that. So it's interesting. I didn't know that about you guys down there. But we're going to get some lake effect stuff on lower Michigan, really the eastern half of the UP of Michigan for the first half of the day. And then we'll have another system swing in. This will bring a wintry mix, a little bit of snow, a little bit of this and that across North Dakota. Some snow will start to move in the northern half of Minnesota with a very weak storm system that'll move in. And then by the time we get into tonight, this will be some warm snow too. So, it's not like this is going to, there's going to be a tight temperature gradient somewhere into here. So I wouldn't call it a warm snow, but it's definitely not going to be, I don't think a dry snow, if that makes any sense, but we're going to get some bursts of snow tonight across areas of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, the UP and Michigan, and we'll wake up to it tomorrow morning. But you can see there's a temperature gradient right in here across the Great Lakes region. Snow between now and the next 48 hours, a little bit of snow in North Dakota, a little bit of ice too. And then we'll take a look at, I just skipped Minnesota, my bad. Snow for Minnesota, a touch of it, not a whole lot. I'm about to sneeze. I'm going to try to hold it. Wisconsin, a few inches of snow in northern Wisconsin, the UP and Michigan. You can see a few to several inches of snow. So add to that snowpack for you guys. Several inches of snow is possible, actually. So could be a pretty decent event. Just winter weather advisory type stuff, I believe, for your area. But once you're starting to get into those pink colors, it's over a half a foot of snow that's possible. So lower Michigan, between what's going on now and a little bit that will move in overnight, a touch of snow is possible. So Detroit, maybe a half an inch, a few inches of snow right up against Lake Michigan, those lake effect areas. So conditions out west will continue just to have a funnel of moisture across the Pacific Northwest. Some of this will begin to kind of shunt south a little bit across northern California. Higher elevation snow, lower elevation rain is still well above average temperature-wise across the western U.S., so we're not getting any valley snow or anything like that. But look at this punch of cold air across the upper Midwest. Highs just in the single digits. Great Lakes region, we got cold air it's going to be tough to figure out high temperatures today because a lot of folks' high temperatures along that I-95 corridor are going to be this morning, and it's going to drop throughout the day. I don't want you to watch let's see if we can switch it to this. I want you to watch how temperatures begin to sort of rebound quickly. But we do have another shot that kind of moves in, but you can see how it begins to warm pretty fast across this area as we barely have low temperatures that are below freezing in these areas. But you can see another shot of cold air moving in. It's just not going to dig down very far south. But I did mention cold snow in here, but I mean, it's just going to be cold at the surface, but aloft, you're going to have a lot of warm air moving in. But temperatures out west, I mean, it is warm. I mean, we're getting into the 70s across the central high plains. I mean, Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, heck, even into Wyoming. It's been a very relaxed start to winter out here. So, all right, let's look at this and do a quick Bible devotion. And I don't like that, so let's pause it there. All right, this morning we're in Psalms. Hopefully I marked it. Yeah, I did. Psalms chapter 37, verse 23 through 24. It says, "A person's steps are established by the Lord, and he takes pleasure in his way. Though he falls, he will not be overwhelmed, because the Lord supports him with his hand." So I wrote, when we follow God, we will still fall sometimes. It may be from life throwing curveballs or from our own self-inflicted mistakes. If we continue to follow and trust in God, he will pick us back up when we fall. Don't let a knockdown from life keep you down. We're always called to get back up and keep moving. God's hand is his strength, therefore our strength. Lean on that and push forward. So I think Psalm is always a great book in the Bible. Fantastic life information and just so much stuff you can apply. Everything in the Bible you can apply to your life, whether it's whatever it may be. So appreciate y'all. Listen, the views are going to be low on the videos, and I'm cool with that. I mean, I'm not going to try to milk something that ain't there, and I don't want to provide false hope. But we'll continue to try to figure this one out. It was around this time last year where we could see a really good pattern setting up as we moved into January. Fast forward to now, you're not seeing it as much, and that is discouraging for me. And I know a lot of people are going to put in the comments, whether that's Facebook, here on YouTube, Twitter, whatever it may be. Well, winter's over. It's over. It's just crazy to me that people do that. I go back and look at some analog years here. The one that comes to my mind first is December of 2015. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was so warm. I mean, it literally hit 80 degrees just about here in Columbia, South Carolina on Christmas Day. The entire December was warm. It was just diabolical how the weather was in December for winter weather fans. And then, we got into January. It took a few weeks, and then we had that crazy, crazy winter storm that dumped feet of snow over the mid-Atlantic. And I forgot, it was like the second or third week of January is the 2016 January winter storm. And it dropped winter weather as far south as the Carolinas. And so, sometimes winter can be defined by one giant winter storm, sometimes not. Same thing with hurricane season, right? It just takes one to create your yearly average for snow, your winter average. But, I look back also on 2021. Right? That was another year when we had that crazy tornado outbreak in Arkansas, getting to Kentucky, surrounding states. I mean, it was so warm. We had just a consistent trough over the western U.S. It was warm in the east. And then all of a sudden, bang, we just flipped in 2022. And then we had like 3-4 weeks in a row of winter weather events across the eastern U.S. And even in here in the Carolinas, it literally snowed like 3 weekends in a row at my house. And then, you go back to even last year. I mean, it got pretty warm in December after a cold start to December. And then things flipped around. So, we can point to all this stuff, and I'm just trying to provide a little hope. But, man, it only takes one. It only takes one storm. So let's continue to try to figure this one out. Jeez, this video is 40 minutes long. All right, we got to get off here. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.